JM Squalia here. I'm your host, discussing Fitchburg Now. Tonight we're going to be talking about insurance. Our insurance options, what are some important insurance that we should consider having. And I have Lisa Curley from S.J. Markham Son's Insurance.
Yes.
Right on Main Street in Fitchburg.
Yep.
To talk about, let's talk about our insurance coverage.
Sure.
Yeah. And in the second half of the show, I speak with Alec O'Mara from Untitled, who's going to talk about the rise in energy costs. So for our first half, insurance. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
You know, the one main insurance topic I'd like to discuss is renters insurance.
Sure.
It seems so often that there are devastating fires in Fitchburg and around the surrounding area, and the people do not have insurance.
Right.
They don't have. I don't know if they don't know that they had coverage. They didn't think that they would need it.
Right.
You know. And so I want to talk about what it would take to get renters insurance, what the cost of that is, and you know, how often this catastrophe insurance is necessary.
Sure. I think it's personally important for everybody to have some sort of coverage. Policies start as low as, I think, $15,000 of coverage. I don't think people realize how much stuff they actually have. I mean, it covers you know, everything from your pots and pans to all your clothes to your Xbox to your TV to pretty much anything you brought into that apartment is covered.
Your clothes.
Just your clothes alone nowadays can be very expensive. You know, jewelry. People don't think, you know, if you've got a couple kids, you easily have a lot of money invested in things, and it can be as cheap as maybe $150, $250 a year. So it's one thing that I think a lot of renters don't realize. They may assume that they're covered under the dwelling that they're living in, under that homeowners or the apartment complex might have a policy, but they don't. They're only covering the structure.
There's never a policy that covers renters.
Correct.
If you're renting an apartment.
Correct.
Or any sort of dwelling that you do not own.
Correct. And even, there can be different instances where you might not even be covered thinking you own the dwelling. For instance, we were talking about condos. Some people might buy a condo and think that their condo association helps them with their contents, but it doesn't either. They need a special condo policy to help them cover their belongings, their valuables, and also
so if you rent a condo.
Yes, it's the same thing as a renter's policy. But if you own a condo, some people automatically assume that their contents are covered under their condo association policy, the big policy that everybody sort of buys into to cover the building. And it's also a liability issue too. I don't think people realize if they rent in a multifamily, let's say you're the top tenant and you know, your tub overflows and starts ending up and damaging other people's stuff, you're liable for all of that, and you could get sued or, you know.
So it's not, you're not just getting renters insurance.
No, it's not just covering your stuff. You get liability as well. You know, little things. I always say my biggest example is, you know, the postal person that gets bit by your dog or falls down on your stairs. You can be in trouble for their medical bills, and somebody sues you. There's coverage like that for all of that under a renter's policy.
If you own a dog and you can have a liability coverage for a dog on renter's insurance?
There is what they call a dog list. They do not want certain dogs.
Pitbull.
For obvious reasons. You can go, you know, elsewhere for that coverage, but it's more expensive. But I mean, just, you know, the general little fluffy thing that's running around. That's
still,
you know,
very apt to bite.
I know, they all are, unfortunately, but they do have, like I said, they have a list that they don't prefer homeowners with that. But again, we can get coverage. It's just some companies will, some companies won't. But again, it is something that you would be liable for. Not members of your own family, but, you know, you have a party and people come over, then they get hurt. Even, you know, just falling. Somebody could fall on your front steps.
And sue you.
And that's a liability issue too. So it's not just for your stuff, it's covering you as well.
So renter's insurance. Let's say I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't have this coverage. It could be as little as $150 about a year,
Yeah.
which is $12 a month-ish.
Yep, yep.
How do I apply for renter's insurance? What do you need?
You'd call an insurance agency, and we would take information over the phone from you, the address, you know, how much in contents you think you have. There's also a deductible involved. Usually it starts at $500. So which means that if there was a loss, you would pay the first $500, and then they would pay anything over that. And then it's simply just coming in to sign paperwork and putting a deposit. It's really not as complicated as people might think it is.
How do you assess the value of your stuff, and how do you prove the value of your stuff?
Well, one of my things I always like to say is if you're going to do something like that, if you can video, or now we all have smartphones that can take a video and, you know, upload it to a cloud so it's somewhere.
Safe.
You know, you might forget that, you know, something as simple as how many pairs of jeans do you have? You go, how many pairs of shoes did you have? You know, things like that. You forget that maybe you had grandma's jewelry and you forgot about that. Or even just like I said, not many people will realize how many pairs of shoes, how many towels did you have, how many pots and pans did you have. I mean, literally all of that is covered under a renter's policy.
So I mean, it would behoove you to take an inventory
Yes.
of your stuff,
Yes.
and then take and then add up the value of
Yep.
all of that,
Yep.
and then take a video of you
Yes.
walking around for 20 minutes going,
Yeah,
look at
just
my
like,
stuff,
just
oh, look
so
at
you
this
have an
stuff.
idea. Yep.
Yeah, here's
Yeah.
the date.
Yep. Just you know, and it's more, I think it's more important too for if you have anything valuable, that's one good thing that you should talk to your agent about, because you can get special coverage.
Like if you have
so
a
that
diamond ring, that's
you-
not covered under a general policy.
Well, it is, but
add-
it's only covered for maybe $1,000, I think, is the limit for jewelry
So if you have
and fine
fancy
arts.
diamond ring.
Fine arts, all that kind of stuff. We have people with gun collections nowadays. That's a big topic.
Oh yeah, insuring your guns is a special
Yep. Plenty,
rider, or
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, they have a rider, or you can have your own what's called a standalone policy if you have a big antique, you know, what's the word
collection.
yes, thank you. Different things like that you can insure separately, but for just normal everyday people, usually a renter's policy. And like I said, you know, 15,000 is usually plenty. But we can go up, I believe, to 250,000 for contents for most of those policies.
So let's say a fire does strike, and you have renter's insurance. What do they cover? Do they cover you being able to stay at a hotel?
Yes, they could. They would be what's called loss of use coverage, which means that if you're put out, even if the fire didn't start in your apartment, let's say there's 10 apartments and 3 of them caught on
sprinklers
fire.
went off.
Yours might be fine, but you can't live in that building. So there is coverage for that, for hotels, food, you know.
Moving costs.
Yeah, it can. There's a lot of different issues that you can get in there. Like I said, we've had extra gas if you have to commute further from where you're staying. There's a lot of different coverages that's afforded to you
Yep, through
during
renter's
a
insurance.
renter's. Yeah, just something as simple as less than your coffee run a week. You know,
Right,
people don't
I mean,
realize $20
for-
a month can get you all that coverage and peace of mind for your stuff.
Absolutely, and
Yes.
you know, if anything were to happen,
Yep.
then you'd be very glad that you had that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what are some other insurance options that, you know, are generally seem to be underutilized in our area?
What I like to call your toys. I don't think people realize that they can get coverage for
Like a ATV
their
or a
boats,
dirt bike?
ATVs, snowmobiles, jet skis. You know, even nowadays, a lot of people camping, they have their campers.
Campers.
Trailers.
So there's no requirement to have insurance on an ATV or anything like that?
It depends. It's not necessarily something that people look. I know you get into gray areas if somebody doesn't have a loan on something where the bank forces you to have some sort of coverage on it because they want to get paid if it's stolen, you know, totaled, that kind of stuff. Some people I don't think realize that they can get coverage for that. And again, it's not just for, you know, the boat or the ATV, it's also a liability issue.
Right. If you were to ride your boat and crash into someone's dock or crash into someone else and
Yes.
injure them,
Yes.
or your boat sank,
Yep.
and you had to have to pay someone to pull it out with a crane.
And God forbid you've paid a bank to take care of this. Now you're out all this money.
And
you're
the
still
cost
paying
of,
on a
and the
loan.
cost of the boat.
You're still paying for a loan for a boat you're not going to have forever.
So there's boat insurance. These
Yeah.
are what would you call these?
I
insurances?
just call them the toys.
Toy
you know,
insurance.
yes. You know, your motorcycles. Obviously, most people know about your
You need
motorcycles.
to have motorcycle insurance to legally ride in Massachusetts.
Yes,
right?
but you don't have to necessarily have insurance on your snowmobiles or your jet skis. Again, I think a lot of people just look at them like toys. I mean, it's just something why would I think about insuring that? It just
doesn't
cost
just
me
cover-
$1,500 and I'm riding it, you know, 3 months a year.
But if you crash into something,
or it gets stolen.
someone rides on it and you crash and they get injured.
Yep. And somebody steals it and rides, technically they could come back on you.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, there's all sorts of loopholes and stuff where, you know, technically I could be driving your car, but because you own the car and I'm driving, they could technically sue both of us because
I own the car.
It's your stuff,
Yeah.
you know. So there's a lot of things out there that I think people, you know, just giving us a call. We don't mind answering questions at all, anytime about anything. What was the other thing I was thinking of the other day? When we were talking about the mobile homes, ones that you drive in, obviously you
need insurance.
You need insurance. You have to get a plate and everything. But some of the ones that you pull with your vehicle.
You wouldn't necessarily have insurance on that.
You wouldn't think about it because trailers are automatically covered once your vehicle's pulling it, but once you park it somewhere for the summer, there's no coverage under your auto policy for that.
And so if you would be cooking in your mobile kitchen and a fire happens, you wouldn't be covered.
Right.
Unless you had mobile home coverage.
Yep, unless you had that mobile trailer policy to cover. Again, it's almost like a mini little homeowner policy where it covers you. Go-karts,
What are
golf carts.
What are approximate costs? You know, if we're talking about.
I mean, stuff like that can be a little hard to guess, just because it goes by the year, you know, how old it is, where it's going. But I've seen policies again for just a simple mobile home policy, maybe $350 a year. Antique cars, those can get really inexpensive if you're not
driving
using
them
it
regularly.
Yep. So they have a lot of different policies for that specialty market that, you know, not everyday
Your
item.
gun collection.
Yeah. Even you'd be surprised. They'll insure dolls collections, you know, fine china collections. There's
because
just
a lot
about
of those
anything.
aren't covered under your general homeowner's policy.
Right.
So if you have something particularly valuable, then you'll want to add that as a specialty item on your policy.
Yes, because there's coverage for just about everything under there, but valuables like that, you're going to get, let's say you have, you know, grandma's fine china that's worth however much money, you're going to get probably about $1,000. So if it's worth $10,000, then you're going to get $1,000. You know.
So you want to add that specifically as a $10,000 additional,
and then you're covered.
The typical cost of that is maybe $20 a year.
Yeah, depending on what it is, it's you know, I know jewelry is so much per thousand, but even just to schedule, let's say a $50,000 ring onto your policy might be $125 a year. Right. Again, which
and if you can afford a $50,000 ring,
yeah, exactly.
You know.
I think you can afford $100 to insure it. So,
yep.
Most people nowadays, yeah.
Now, what about life insurance and disability insurance?
Right.
And I mean, I know a lot of people might have life insurance, or a lot of people might think that it's important, but not a lot of people actually have it. And the disability insurance, I don't know what the rates are.
Disability, that can fall into a couple different categories. Usually offered by an employer, you can get long-term and short-term disability. Most employers probably don't do a short-term. That gives you, you know, I think it's about, you're out of work 30 days and it would kick in. Most people usually do the long term, which I believe is 6 months. Anything after that, you can start covering under the disability. Personal disability insurance is a little different.
If you're buying it on your own?
Yes, I would think it's more it's basically a different category of life insurance.
Okay.
And again, most people don't think about life insurance because I'm fine. I'm not gonna, nothing's gonna happen to me. But I don't think you realize that, if you're gone, just think about what happens to everybody around you.
Right.
So
Are you the breadwinner in the family?
Is there a mortgage that somebody needs to pay for? Do you have young kids that are, under the age of 18? Are they going to college? Do they need this? You've got the stay-at-home mom who, you say, well, she doesn't make anything. Why does she need insurance? But
Imagine
now
if
you've
you had
got
to hire a nanny and a tutor
the
and
cook,
a maid and a chef.
There's a lot of things that you might not think about that, they're doing for you while you're just at work. Not that just at work, but so there's a lot of different factors for life insurance. And again, there are many different factors for that depending on age, lifestyle, how much coverage you need.
How many people in your experience have coverage for life insurance? Do you feel like we're covered, or do you feel like more?
No,
we're not
I
covered
feel
enough?
more people, it's definitely an older generation, so to speak, people that end up with more. A lot of kids coming out of college, that kind of stuff, don't really think about it. Hopefully it's something that an employer might offer. Sometimes they do have some sort of, their benefit insurance in with their health insurance and dental, that kind of stuff, that might give them a little bit if something should happen. But again, a lot of times that may just be work related. They have to kind of be on the job to get that. So again, it's just something, and the younger and healthier you are, the cheaper it is too. So if you can get a 20 or a 30-year policy in your 20s,
lock it in
for nothing. I mean, it's really probably $60 a month, if that. I mean, I see people.
If you own a home,
yes, and you've got to pay a mortgage unless you're getting the, you waive. I think there's something you can waive now in mortgages, that there's a policy in your mortgage payment that would say, if so and so dies, then the loan is wiped out. But basically what you're paying for is a life insurance policy.
On a mortgage?
On the mortgage.
Really?
Yes, yeah. I don't know if too many banks do that anymore, but...
I don't think mine did.
No, maybe not. Yeah.
But that's okay, I'm not going anywhere.
I know, that's what I say too. We're going to be here forever. Yeah, so life insurance.
Accidents happen.
They
don't
do.
call them on purposes.
Yep, and that's why I think disability too is one that I don't think a lot of people realize. Something happens. People just think they're going to die, and it could get worse, believe it or not, than dying. You could.
Why would you need a disability policy? What are some common reasons that a disability policy, you'd be like, thank you, I got this disability policy?
It just not being able to work anymore. Something happens and let's say you're paralyzed, you need home care now, you can't do anything on your own. That's not a life insurance policy. That's a disability policy. And I just don't think people realize that there are things like that, and it's not always going to happen on the job. People think of contractors falling off the roof, that kind of stuff, but you could just be walking down the street, get hit by a car. Not that I wish that the stuff on anybody, but it's real life. I mean, stuff happens all the time. People
fall down the stairs.
Somebody, has a medical condition that, epilepsy, that kind of stuff. They have seizures, fall down, just anything that could actually put you out of work, put you out of commission, so to speak.
What are the rates on a disability policy compared to a life insurance policy?
They're pretty much the same. Again, it depends on what kind of coverage you're looking for. That stuff gets interesting because there are different levels you can buy. What are you just looking for the major catastrophe kind of thing, or do you want to tweak it a little bit more to have more coverage? And again, they can be very inexpensive depending on age and lifestyle.
Insurance?
It can be. Again, it's just depending on what kind of coverage you want, how how insured you want to be, I guess. Some people worry more than others, and they do the what if syndrome, and I just want to make sure I'm covered for everything. And some people are like, unless
Only
this
the worst
happens,
condition.
yes, unless this happens, I'm not really worried about the rest of it, you know. But again, life insurance, I think you can do monthly, yearly, quarterly. Most quarterlies, I want to say maybe $300 a quarter for, you know, an average couple in their 30s, depending on how much coverage you're looking for, maybe $250,000 to $500,000 a year. It can be a good investment if something should happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when we're talking about all the different types of insurances that might fit with you and with your life, what about, you know, combining insurances and saving costs?
You can definitely, especially on your personal lines, your auto, your home. A lot of companies offer up to a 20 to 25% discount if you combine them with the same companies. So that's why I think it's a good idea to talk to your agent, make sure you've got the right coverages. You do anything, think of us. You know, you put, hey, I just redid the backyard and put $40,000 into the landscaping. I put on that pool house. I just, you know, did an addition. Anything like that changes the values of your home. And we should be aware of that because we don't want to see you have that loss and not have the correct coverage. You know, and again, it's just one of those things that we're here to help you. We want to make sure you're covered correctly. We want to make sure, you know, there isn't a problem. That's good.
What about, so what we were talking about earlier is drone coverage.
Yes,
A lot of people
drones.
have drones for personal use.
Yes.
Is there a liability concern
Yes.
with taking their drone and flying it around
Yep.
and it hitting
It can
something
be.
and
Yep.
causing an accident or breaking something valuable, or I don't know?
Exactly. It depends on, again, my brain just goes bananas. It depends on what it hits. Is it taking out the satellite dish on somebody's house, or is it physically, you know, landing
falling
in somebody's,
on someone?
crashing through something and into somebody's house? There can be exclusions for any kind of drone moving device. It can be the little airplanes that people get, the toys. You know, there are different varieties of
Is that
what they
like-
consider a drone. So
Would that be covered under your homeowner's insurance?
yes, it would be something that
If you're
you would have.
using a personal use.
Yes. Again, and the stipulations go on the size, the type, what you're doing with it, how many motors are in it, how many batteries does it take. But for the most part right now, that's a big gray area because of everything going on.
New technology.
Yes, like the Uber and the Lyft drivers, that's a new area where I don't think they realize once they log into those apps, there's really no coverage under their auto policies for things like that.
Because you have personal auto insurance, but you don't have taxi insurance.
Yes, exactly, and the commercial liabilities for that kind of stuff.
So segueing to that,
Yes.
what if you are an Uber driver or a Lyft driver?
You should definitely call your agent. Some companies offer endorsements that you can add on that they will cover you if you're logged into the app and haven't picked up a ride yet. So once you accept a ride, then Uber's coverage basically would kick in, but you would still have some coverage under your auto policy if you hadn't picked up a ride yet. Sometimes
So if you're logged into the app,
but you
haven't picked up anyone, then there's a
that
period
gray
where
area that you're still running around. Let's just say, hey, I'm available, but you haven't said accept that ride yet. You're still covered on your auto policy. Once you accept that ride and people are in your car, then
now
there's
you're a commercial
no coverage.
entity.
Yes.
And Uber might have a...
Uber, I believe, has their own little policy that they give you, but I don't know, I haven't read it yet. I've been trying to get a copy of one of their contracts, but there's not much coverage for you. It's basically they're covering themselves, not necessarily who's driving for them. So it is definitely something you want to check with your agent, because like I said, I do know there's several companies out there now offering an endorsement you can add to the policy. And worst case, you can always ask about livery policies and commercial auto to cover that kind of exposure too, depending on how often you're doing it and how much money you're making, it might be worthwhile to just, you know, look into other alternatives.
See what the to see what the options are
Yes.
and see what the menu of cost options are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
based on coverage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the very least, make sure you have good liability and, you know, collision and everything on your car too.
These are things that you don't think of until it's too late.
Nope, you don't think about it.
But that's why.
Yep.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's good.
So let's see, what else do we have? Business insurance. What about business insurance? There's a lot of, you know, home businesses and craft businesses, Etsy businesses.
Yes.
Have you seen a lot of these?
Yep,
with
there's a lot
coverage?
of stuff. You can actually, depending on what it is, get coverage under your homeowner's policy for a business like that. You can, it's usually what I like to call the mom and pop, or, you know, the person that actually works from home. They're not really having any foot traffic. They're not having customers walking into their house, but they are doing something on the side. A lot of them, it depends on how much you're making at that point too. I believe the limit usually is something like $2,000 a year. So if you're really doing well on Etsy or eBay or any of that kind of stuff, I would suggest you know, a business policy for yourself. Again, those run depending on what you're doing. You know, if you're a plumber or you're just at home doing bookkeeping, the rates are different.
If you have inventory to...
Yeah, inventory, yeah. If you're in your house with the inventory, I would definitely suggest having a nice conversation with your agent, because it depends. Again, all the companies are different and there's so many nowadays. Some might let you have an endorsement on the homeowners, depending on, again, on what it is.
Which would just add some dollars and add coverage to your existing homeowner's policy.
Because stuff like that, let's say you make quilts and you sell them on eBay, having all that inventory in your house is now considered a content. So do you have enough coverage under your homeowner's policy for, you know, the $10,000 worth of quilting stuff you have in your, you know, whether it's the equipment or just the material themselves? I mean, I know people get those sergers now and all these funky things for embroidery, and those machines can get costly too. So exactly how much
you can get
do
personalized towels and stuff.
I know.
Yeah,
all the monogramming. My sister-in-law does a lot of monogramming.
Yeah, who doesn't want personalized gifts?
So, yep, again, there's a lot that you can do out there with...
Think about, you know, the
everyday stuff.
The worst case scenarios. Yeah, these are things we don't like to generally think about.
No, you don't.
It's good to plan.
Yes. And it, like I said, all it is a conversation. Even if you're not doing anything yet, but you're like, you know, my friend was saying, you should really sell those. You know, those are really cute. Or just call us. We can walk you through it. We can talk about it, you know, and give you your best options depending on what you want to do.
All right. So when we're talking about new things that are coming through, you know, we talk about Uber, Lyft, drones. How about Airbnb? Say you have, you know, your home. You want to start, you know, you want to rent out you want to have some people come in, and meet new people and get some extra income in your home.
If your home is a different story. If you're renting your house to the B&B, again, that's another conversation. There might not be coverage.
There are both options within the online platform of Airbnb. You could rent your whole house.
Yep.
Or
just
you
a
could
room.
just a room.
Yep. So again, if you're leaving, you know, your house and people are coming in for the summer, again, depending on the companies, some of them are now offering endorsements to your policy. But that is a huge liability issue, and they're not going to cover necessarily things like theft and vandalism, because you're letting strangers into your house willingly. It's not you're being robbed or something like that. So there is a big exposure for that. Again, that's a new thing. That it's funny how you're bringing all this stuff up. Only within the last year, we've been talking about all of these things with the companies and how to get the proper coverage for our insureds, and making sure that they're not liable for something and there's that gray area where there's no coverage.
Right, and you know, if someone stays at your home and falls down the stairs,
Again, yep.
how are they covered?
Exactly.
And are they covered?
Yep. And I think sometimes too, if you're going through an agency like the Airbnb, I know their contracts have different stipulations in it, and where the coverage lies. But again, I think a lot of those companies, it's like the Uber, they're covering themselves more than the person that they're renting to. So
check the policy, check
Yep.
check the fine print
Yes.
with the online offerings, and talk to your insurance agent.
Yep. If it's something you're interested in doing, again, they would want to call their companies and make sure there's some sort of coverage.
And you're at SJ Markham, which is
Yes.
the white building,
Yes.
right at 365 Main Street in
Yep.
Fitchburg,
Yep.
right next to Curious Escape Room.
Yes. I haven't been there yet. One of these days.
It's great.
Is it?
I did not escape from the dollhouse.
Oh no.
You know, we got trapped inside. But I haven't done the 90s video.
Is that what's there now?
There's 2 of them.
Oh,
They have
okay.
2 rooms.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'll have to
so
try
we're
that
going to
out.
escape the second time.
Okay.
The second room.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll get through that.
But so you're
Yeah.
what are your hours down at
We're
down on Main
open-
Street?
We're open 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. And we
And we do have a phone number and an email we can pull up to contact SJ Markham. You pull that out. Here's the phone number.
There's the phone number.
So you can call that.
Yeah.
Contact SJ Markham. And do we have a email that we can pull up?
I think I gave
Oh,
you
there
my
we
email.
go.
Yay.
You can contact Lisa right here,
Yes.
lcurley@markhaminsuranceagency.com.
Yep.
Yeah, or just pop in 8:30 to 4.
8:30 to 4. We're 8 to 4:30. Sorry.
8 to
just screwed
4:30. Sorry. Yep.
Yep. We're there Monday through Friday.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about general auto insurance. You know, I get a lot of talk about what do I need for auto insurance? Do I need this uninsured motorist? Do I need what's the deductible that I should have? Do I need comprehensive?
Right. So to cover yourself, obviously, you'd want everything. Again, people are...
Sure, from an insurance agent.
Yeah. Again, people usually, it depends on, my car is 25 years old. I don't care what happens to the car. Just make sure I'm covered if I hurt somebody or,
Yeah. So in that case, you'd have a high deductible.
Yeah,
and a
or no
low...
deductible at all. Some people just drop what's called the physical damage, the collision and comprehensive, and just keep the liability.
Oh, okay.
I try to make people aware of things that, like property damage. A lot of people just want to drop that down, but I don't know about you, most of the cars out there are not worth $5,000-$10,000. They're worth a lot more than that.
You mean if you crash your car into another
Property,
car?
yep. So your property damage, so if you hit somebody else's property, whether it be their house, their car, their tree, that's covered.
Yeah, you could go
That's
right
covered.
into their house.
Yes, we've
business?
had people do that, or push another car into somebody's house. So you're paying for all of that. It can get very costly. So even the $100,000 limit a lot of times can be scary. But that's one of the biggest coverages I try to tell people to make sure you're
personal
adequately.
property.
Yeah.
And
Your property damage.
Property
sorry.
damage.
Yes.
The property damage portion. And what would you recommend?
Honestly, probably at the minimum 100,000. I would prefer. I think the companies will go up to 250,000, even 150. Just think about lately all these car accidents. There's 3, 4, 5 cars involved. It can get costly.
You crash into a business and you hit it just at the wrong
angle. Yeah, you could be in damage. The other coverage I do like to recommend, I believe the maximum you can get is $25,000, is medical payments.
medical payments.
Yep, it's called medical payments for others.
So
Basically,
you hit someone and they have to go to the hospital?
What this coverage is you and your passengers. So anybody in your vehicle. I usually try to explain it as, do you card everybody for medical insurance when they get into your car?
So if someone doesn't have coverage in your car?
Correct. Well, even if they do have coverage, but your coverage pays for their medical bills up to the policy limit per person. So I think the minimum coverage you can get is $5,000. But if you have 5 people in the car, I mean, ambulance rides nowadays, unfortunately, I think could cost you at least
$2,000,
$1,000, you know, dollars, depending on where you are. So that can get eaten up quite fast.
The minimum.
So I recommend higher limits.
Higher than 5,000.
Yeah, I think, and it's not, you know, people don't realize it's not as expensive. Maybe to go from the 5,000 to 25,000
What's
is
the approximate?
$12.
$12 a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that much to invest in something, like I said, as simple as just covering somebody if they get hurt in your car. The collision is more for your vehicle. If your vehicle is damaged, your policy will kick in to pay for damages. The comprehensive is that one that I usually kind of recommend, even if the car's older, because it's for fire, theft, vandalism, but it also covers glass loss, and I know windshields can be very expensive.
That's comprehensive?
Yes, that's the comprehensive coverage. So even for the older cars, you know, they might catch on fire, which is your fire coverage. On the older cars, we've seen that where the engines.
Is that a special fire coverage? Or is that under
it's
your general?
comprehensive.
Oh,
That's under your
comprehensive.
comprehensive is fire, theft, vandalism.
Oh, okay.
Those would all have a deductible, and glass usually.
But glass has,
glass
but
claims
the
there's
window,
no deductible.
yeah, the windshield is no deductible.
Right, correct. As long as it's written that way on the policy. Some policies I know.
I thought that was a Massachusetts thing.
Yeah, like I said, and some companies, now we've got a lot of these national writers coming in too, where they might not offer it without a deductible.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, those would be my biggest, is that medical payments, property damage, and just having the comprehensive. And again, it's a liability thing. How much do you have? How much do you want to lose?
How much do you want to risk,
you know,
if there was a catastrophe?
And we do offer what's called umbrella policies as well, which you can.
Umbrella?
Yes, that's.
That sounds safe.
Yep, that's pretty much what it means. It's taking your home and your cars, and what's saying is you have this amount of liability on that. If for some reason something happens, we're going to kick into this other policy that has a higher liability limit. So if you have, let's say, you have $500,000 of liability on your homeowner's policy, and you're sued, and they sue you for $1 million. Well, your homeowners will pay out that $500,000, and then you can go to the umbrella up to that policy limit, which is usually, let's say, $1 million. So you would have that other $500,000 buffer.
So an umbrella policy is like a secondary insurance that would kick in.
That covers everything, basically.
And you could umbrella your home, vehicle, business.
Business. Well, we have business
umbrellas for different
too.
things.
Yeah, there's
maybe your boat
different.
insurance. Would that get kicked in under your personal umbrella?
Too. Yep, your toys, I like to call it. There's different ways, formats for all of that. Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming to the end.
Okay.
So thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Lisa,
Thank
from
you.
S.J. Markham Insurance, right at 365 Main Street on Fitchburg, in Fitchburg.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can contact Lisa. We gave the phone number. Can we give the phone number again? There's the email. Yeah. And the phone number. So you can contact Lisa anytime, or any of the other agents at S.J. Markham, or your own insurance agent, to discuss all these different policy options. All right, so thank you so much for watching. Now we're going to go to Unitil and talk about our energy costs. Thank you so much. Hi, Sam Squalia here, and we're going to be talking about energy costs with the representative from Unitil, Alec O'Mara.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be talking about the energy costs and the rise in energy costs that we've been experiencing over this cold winter.
Yeah, it's been a really tough winter, and we have been getting some calls on that. We've seen some comments on social media, and we just thought it would be really good to try and just explain a little bit about what's going on and let folks know more places they can get information and some things they can do, because it's technically spring, but it still seems like it's going to snow again tonight, and I am thoroughly done with the winter, as I'm sure lots of other folks are. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's been up, and it's been a bunch of different factors that have all sort of combined that have led to what's going on this winter.
For our rise in energy bills.
Yeah, bills in general. It's both rate related and bill related.
Right. So one issue is we've had an increase in supply costs.
Correct, supply costs. Now, as you know, as I've been on before, there are different parts of the utility bill. There's the Unitil part of the bill, which is technically called the distribution part. That part pays for poles, wires, trucks, everything you think of as your local utility company. And then the other largest part of the bill is the supply cost. Unitil doesn't own power plants. We don't generate our own electricity. That's by law in the state.
Right.
So what we are supposed to do is we go out every 6 months and we get the market rate of that electricity, and that rate goes into effect for a 6-month period. So this particular one that we're in right now began December 1. It goes through
the 6-month period?
The 6-month period. It began the 1st of December and it goes through to the end of May. So that's, we call it the winter rate because it basically includes most of the winter. And then you have a second rate that goes from the beginning of May all the way through Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So when that rate took effect, it was higher than it was the previous winter.
About how much higher?
Well, I think last winter it was in the neighborhood of 9 cents, 9.5, something like that, cents per kilowatt hour. This winter it's about 12 cents per kilowatt hour, 12.4 cents.
That's pretty significant.
Yes, and it's not unique to Unitil. That's happened throughout New England.
New England has the highest gas cost, you know, in the entire country.
That's correct. The reason for that is there's a bottleneck that occurs in New England. So this is a big time news story. It's been everywhere, but lots of natural gas was found throughout the Northeast. That's happened. Now we have this 100-year supply, so on and so forth. Natural gas prices throughout the country are actually quite low, but there's a bottleneck when you get to New England. There's only so many pipes that come into New England, and there's a bunch of reasons for that, and you know, we understand those reasons. But because of that bottleneck, you create a constraint on supply. But there's lots of interest in demand. People use natural gas to heat. People use natural gas to generate electricity. So those two things combine in the winter, and it creates a whole bunch of demand for natural gas. Because of that, the costs go up.
Yep.
On top of that, we're also seeing power plants in New England start to retire. We have older plants that are coming offline. Some coal plants have come offline. There's a nuclear plant in Vermont that has come offline. So a little bit less electricity overall is getting generated in New England. There are plans to try and reimburse that, get more generation into our region. But until that happens, you're seeing the overall amount of electricity that can get made is coming down.
How has solar generation attributed to that?
Solar generation helps. That comes up in, I think it's something like 4 or 5%. There's an entity called ISO New England. They would know the exact percentage as far as what home solar is, as far as the overall mix. But again, doesn't help a ton in the wintertime because there's less sun in the wintertime.
Yeah, you're not getting a lot of solar generation
so
in the
that's
winter.
one of those things where it does help. It helps more in the summer, but that issue regarding natural gas in the wintertime, it doesn't quite help us at that time where we have the highest need. So all those things combined, basically demand is way up, the supply is kind of finite, and that's economics 101. So when that happens, the cost of the entity goes up, and that rate is based on the market rate of electricity. So we've seen it come up a little. So
and then we've had the coldest winter that I can remember in a long time.
Literally the coldest winter that anyone can remember. I actually heard
we broke records?
We broke records. The city of Boston set a record. It was the coldest 7-day stretch between Christmas and New Year's in 100 years. So,
really?
Yes.
In 100?
Really, in 100 years.
We had the 100-year storm.
We did. So, and I mean, if you remember during that time, it was super cold for way too long. And it was, I think the highs were in like the single digits. The lows were way below that. It was region-wide.
Damage to buildings across the area.
It was really tough.
Yep. Okay, and so we have to keep heating up all the buildings.
Think about, and here's we hear this often. People say, why is my usage up? I kept my thermostat right there at 68 degrees. I didn't turn it up, but my bill says I used a lot more electricity or a lot more natural gas. Why is that? The reason is you didn't change where you wanted the inside of your house to be, but the outside of your house got way, way cooler. So instead of you having to warm your house, say maybe 50 degrees to get from like 40 up to 70, now you're warming it from 0 to 70. So that's 30 more degrees that your house is working to keep your house warm. And that if you heat with electricity, that's a lot more electricity that you're using. If you heat with natural gas, that's a lot more natural gas you're using just to maintain that comfort that you want at that specific temperature. That leads to increased usage, that leads to increased bills, even though it doesn't feel like you used more electricity. So we see higher bills, and then we see a lot of questions on those things. Also, natural gas prices, they went up too because you had that high spike. Natural gas, the supply part of natural gas doesn't follow the same 6-month. You can see interim rates occur during a period.
So what has natural gas increased from?
Natural gas went from, I think it went up about, I think it was like 27 cents per therm effective February 1. The good news on that is that the
It went up 27? Wait, what did it go from what to what approximately?
I think it went up from about 60 cents per therm to about 90-something cents per therm.
That's
I don't
a
recall.
significant, that's almost as
It's like
significant as the electricity.
Right, it was. But the good news is that's going to be for a shorter period of time. It happened February 1, and I believe it's coming down at the end of this month.
But our electricity supply costs, we can expect to continue till at least May.
Correct. It'll go to May, and then there'll be a new rate. What that new rate will be, we'll find out in like early April, because that's when we have to file for that.
And so, you know, talking about all the increase in costs, now can we talk about a decrease in costs?
Sure. Well, hopefully when we get the new supply rate, we'll see where it comes in. The past few winters, when there has been a spike in the wintertime, we've seen lower in summer. That doesn't necessarily mean that will happen again this summer. We don't know where the market's going to go. It's partially due to this natural gas. It's also part to these plants that are retiring.
Yep.
So I try not to speculate on what happens, but I do know that we will get a supply rate in the mid-April timeframe that will take effect in June.
And also with the federal tax cuts.
Yes.
The federal tax cuts are causing lowered corporate tax.
Yes.
Corporate taxes, which is going to lower our rate payments.
It will lower rates for both gas and electric, and that'll happen for, again, pretty much all utilities in New England. What happened was last fall, and this made a couple headlines too, there was a big tax cut that was approved by Congress that lowered both individual tax bills, and it lowered the corporate tax rate. So the way rates are set is they're set on operation costs. So you look at all the costs the utility has, they add all those up, and then they look at the amount of electricity that's being used in the region. You divide that budget by the amount of electricity, and that's the cost per kilowatt hour. It's really that simple as far as how the unitil part of the bill gets set. So when you see a decrease in an operation cost, like taxes are considered an operation cost, then that means that that's going to drop. So the state of Massachusetts and basically every state in New England has said we want to try and get a one-off done right away with utilities to try and remove that piece of the electric bill, which makes total sense. We expected that, and we're working with the DPU to try and make that happen. So I believe there's a specific filing that happens later in the spring, and we'll work through the DPU. I don't know what the timeline is exactly, but absolutely that's something that's going to happen this year that will have provide some rate relief on both gas and electric.
Sometime around May. Around May.
We do the filing, and then there's a process with the DPU. The alternative would be waiting for another rate case, which means that you go in and you do everything all at once, which includes taxes, operation costs, so on and so forth. That's another way to do it.
But from what I read from the Attorney General, it's going to be on a more accelerated timeline?
That's exactly it. So instead of waiting for the next time we have to come in and file regarding all our operation costs, that happens like every 5 years, we're going to do a one-off. We're going to figure out this tax piece so it can happen quicker for our customers.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other cost lowering plan?
Energy efficiency is always good.
Energy efficiency?
Yeah,
I mean, the quickest way to lower your cost is to literally lower your usage.
Lower your usage. And we have a ton of programs that are available for customers in that regard. They can be as small as rebates to change all the light bulbs in your home. If you
like
still,
Mass Save?
Yeah, Mass Save. Mass Save is exactly what I'm talking about. Mass Save, all the utilities in Massachusetts are part of Mass Save. That's what Mass Save is. So all the rebates that are available, changing light bulbs out, changing out an appliance, going all the way up to getting a full home audit done of your home, where someone comes to your home, looks at all the things you're doing, and will say, look, here's some places where you can save some real money.
And a lot of these services are free as well.
That's correct.
They're paid by the ratepayers, right?
That's correct. So take advantage of them.
Yeah.
You know, they're great programs. I've heard people get real savings from them. A lot of businesses see real savings from them. They go out,
come and replace all our old fluorescent light bulbs with LED.
Yes, absolutely. We did that here, actually. I think that was some savings here for FATV.
FATV saved a bunch.
It's great. So, I mean, and it's funny, people don't realize the number of ways you can save with energy efficiency, and some of it can just be old school. You don't even need to. Just get one of those socks, put it down right by your basement door, make sure you're not losing heat out that way. Check your windows, make sure you got a good seal on all those. you know, it's not just a savings thing, it's also a quality of life thing. You can remove those drafts from your house and you'll just be more comfortable. But that's the
Need as
easiest.
much heat.
Exactly. So we're getting towards the end of winter this time, but there will be another winter. So we should probably plan for that and, you know, taking advantage of our programs. Unitil.com, we have them all there. You can take a look.
So you can go to unitil.com.
Unitil.com.
And you can get a link to Mass Save, or you
Yeah,
have all the information right on the website.
Or just go to masssave.com. You
Or
know, that works
masssave.com.
too. Well, we have the programs are in both places. You know, you can find out what's available and see what you can take advantage of. One other thing I do want to mention is if you do have a bill and you just don't get it, you're looking at it, it looks higher to you, we really, absolutely, call customer service. Let us know. We can find out what's going on. We can have that one-on-one conversation. Also on our website, we launched this last summer. We have My Unitil now, where you can actually look and you can see your usage month to month, year to year.
You can compare, see if there's something
You can compare, you can see the month-to-month data has been filling in, so you can see, oh, look, in January, yes, I did. I used a lot more electricity than I typically do. For a rule of thumb, 600 kilowatt hours is typical for a home as far as electric use. In the wintertime, natural gas is probably in the neighborhood of about 125. That's the average for our service territory. So if you see those numbers
600 kilowatts. So if I'm using more than that, then I should probably turn off the lights.
Well, you know, that just means that you're above average, that's all.
Sometimes you don't want to be above average.
Sometimes. So yeah, those are all good programs to take away available of. We definitely want to hear from you if you're having concerns. We have budget programs.
So if you get a bill and it's way higher than it normally is,
Call us.
Call Unitil.
Absolutely.
There might be an issue, or you can get on a budget plan.
Yes, there's budget plans.
How does the budget plan work?
Well, there's different plans. A budget plan is taking your average for a whole 12-month period. So let's say you're someone who heats with electricity and you have really high electrical bills January, February, March, but you have relatively normal electrical bills during the summertime. What a budget billing plan will do is it'll look at your whole year's plan and say, okay, this is about your average over the course of a year. Let's put you on a plan so you don't have crazy spikes in the wintertime and you just pay what your average is every month. So that way you don't get nailed in the wintertime. So that's one thing that you can do. There are also plans, there are qualifying plans with low income customers. If you qualify for those, there's a discount rate, 25% below. That's something that's available. There are fuel assistance programs. The New England Farm Workers Council. I do an annual heating forum every year with the United Way, where we try and let everybody, all the agencies in the area, know exactly what's available for
heating
folks.
forum.
A heating forum. No, it's great. I think we did our 18th this past year. And we bring the Farm Workers Council in, and they talk about exactly what's available. This is how you get into these programs. This is how you sign up for them. These are the family income levels that get you here. And just make sure everyone knows.
And for information on that, we can go to unitil.com, or we can call Unitil.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there. New England Farm Workers Council, they have their own website as well. You can reach out to them direct. They work with LIHEAP.
LIHEAP?
LIHEAP. I wish I could remember what that is. It's an acronym. I don't remember.
Okay.
But it's heating assistance. I'm sure the H stands for heat. Yeah. But aside from that, they do great work. And they have program. It's a federal program that the Farm Workers Council allocates. And if you qualify for that, they can help you with your heating.
All right, great. So, you know, one question we always get when we talk about Unitil compared to Leominster, it's always
Yes.
National Grid versus Unitil. And why is Unitil costs so high compared to National Grid costs?
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Listen to this. This is a surprise. There's something called aggregation, third-party supply.
Aggregation.
Yes. The town of Lunenburg does this. We talked about this the last time I was here.
Yep.
And what this is you can get your own third-party supply rate.
Yep.
And you're your own broker for that. And you set
And we can
it.
get that everywhere in the entire state of Massachusetts.
Anybody in
correct?
the state of Massachusetts can do that. You basically choose to get your own energy supply. The town of Lunenburg does this as a unit.
Yeah, in Fitchburg, we have a lot of people that knock on doors
Yeah,
and solicit.
individuals.
Yeah.
So Unitil doesn't endorse any one of those. One of the things that we strongly recommend is if you're going to sign a contract, make sure you know exactly what you're signing. But if you want to explore those options, if you see one that works well for you, you should absolutely consider it. We're not in competition with them. Like I said, separate part of the bill. It's the non-Unitil part of the bill.
You will handle the supply portion
Right.
on the Unitil bill, and you'll handle that through whatever supply you administer that.
Correct.
But you don't suggest any third-party.
Not one over any other.
Suppliers, yeah.
You can go to our website and we'll show you, and we do have a list of everybody who's legally accredited in the state. So if someone comes to your door and they say we're this, you can check our site. Okay, they are licensed. Now, it's still buyer beware there. You want to find exactly what you're signing. Some of these folks, they'll sign you to a longer contract. You want to know opt-in, opt-out, are there fees associated with that? Those are just things to be aware of. I'm getting off track. Lunenburg has their own aggregate rate. And their aggregate rate, their supply part of the bill, they sign their own contract.
The entire
the
town of
does.
Lunenburg.
You can opt into it.
Okay, yep.
Okay? Right now, because of the supply issue, all the utilities are actually very comparable on rates. Because Lunenburg has a lower rate, Lunenburg is paying less than national grid customers right now.
Really?
Yes. So it's all getting a little closer to one another. It's getting a little more comparable. Aggregation is something that absolutely is worth taking a look at. We recommend you explore it.
I believe when we looked into that like 2.5 years ago in Fitchburg, we were discussing that if we did an aggregation, it would save very, very little at that time. But I guess it depends on what snapshot in time that you're looking at the energy costs. And
yep, energy costs. It's always, energy changes. It's a market rate, so it changes up and down all the time. It's always worth seeing what's out there. It's just good to be aware of the options that are available. I think one of the things that the town of Lunenburg did is they signed a year-long contract. We only signed 6-month contracts, so that's something that you can do if you're moving outside. We have a state-regulated mandate as to how we go about getting that market supply, but it's done on purpose, and then everyone else has the option to explore it on their own.
so that's the supply portion of Lunenburg's supply portion is less than National Grid's supply portion.
The total Unitil bill in Lunenburg, because they have that aggregate
Distribution
rate,
plus supply
is lower than distribution plus supply for grid.
for National Grid.
For National Grid. That's
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
that's a good stat.
Yeah, it is a good stat.
Yeah, it's good for you.
It's interesting. And I mean, the reason is that aggregate rate. Their supply rate is like 10-something cents per kilowatt hour. Our supply rate is 12-something cents. Grids is 12-something cents. Eversource is 13-something cents. So they have that 2 cents advantage, and because of that, they're lower than the overall rate at grid. So that's something that third-party supply can do for you. We don't endorse it, but look at it.
Yep, something for you to look at on your own.
That's exactly right.
All right, great. Let's see, what else do we have? Do you know anything about what Senator Tran has just put into the state?
He's
He's looking at reintroducing a muni choice bill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this has come up before.
Yep.
I think it's been filed a number of times. Unitil is purposefully neutral on that particular topic.
Yep.
We have been in the past. The one thing we do recommend, anybody who is looking at that, there was a good report that was done by the DOER, I think in 2010. It looks at municipalization as a whole.
Yep.
What we do is we advise folks to give that document a read. It talks about all the pros and cons of that program, and ultimately draw your own conclusions from what it says.
This would be a municipal kind of takeover of the infrastructure.
Well, I don't want to put too many words into the exact legislation.
Yep.
Like I said, we try and stay very neutral on it. When we were in the last time, I believe the way that then Representative Di Natale talked about it was he said that it's sort of a difference in the way. Right now, if a utility was to talk about selling its access to a town, it would be, sort of just a back and forth, like two people selling a car. You talk about a price, I talk about a price, and we agree on a price. That's basically how it would work right now.
And then go to the DPU,
And
they would have to
and then it would get approved, right?
it.
Just like that. The Muni bill makes it more like an eminent domain thing, where you set it. There's a specific set formula for what the price is, and then the government entity has the choice as to whether or not they want to make that purchase. So I believe that's specifically what it does. That's what it's done in the past. I'm just trying to explain it in layman's terms.
Yep.
Again, we have been historically neutral on it.
And I just saw that there was discussion of it being reintroduced, so just
Absolutely.
to add that in. All right, anything else to close with?
I think that covers it. Unitil.com is a great source. My Unitil is a great source, and that customer service number 1-888-301-7700.
301-7700.
That's correct.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alec O'Mara from Unitil, for coming on and talking to us about our energy costs. And you're also probably going to be on A Smarter Energy Future with John DiNapoli at some point on FATV.
I believe so. I've been on there before. We'll do it again.
You can watch FATV, A Smarter Energy Future, for more information from Unitil. All right. Thank you so much.